What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets and Rob. How is everybody doing? With some interesting news to report, as there has been sources stating that I'll get to in just a second that Pete Alonso and the New York Mets are still engaged in talks as of today. That is interesting news and interesting reporting coming from both sides, and where the sources are coming from are legit sources. And why are the Mets and Alonso still talking? Well, it's kind of obvious. Pete Alonso still doesn't have an offer on the table other than the 3 years for $68 to $70 million that the Mets offered a little less than a week ago, a few days ago, actually. So why are they still engaged? Well, besides the Mets having the only offer on the table, Pete Alonso still understands that the best fit for him, even with that opt-out available in the contract, to have his best season with the New York Mets, or at least a better season than last year. And that is the obvious choice for Pete Alonso. He's going to talk to Toronto and maybe another team just because he knows the Mets are still in on him. They're still engaged with him because the Mets know that Pete Alonso, unless he's going to get a longer term deal or a lot more money on a short term deal, is he better off in Toronto with a lesser lineup? Is he better with the Giants with Adames and Chapman? What about the Cubs? Who's on the Cubs that is better in their lineup than the New York Mets' current lineup? He knows his best possible season offensively is in a New York Mets uniform. Now, the Mets know this, and the Mets know, and there's probably got very good information that no team is going to go much higher per year on a similar short-term deal. And even if the number AAV is a little bit higher than the Mets, who do you think the final call is going to be from Scott Boras and Pete Alonso? It's going to be to the New York Mets to see if they would match it. So no matter what happens over the next week, 2 weeks, whenever this Pete Alonso situation comes to a head and he finally officially signs or has a best offer, he's going to call the Mets at any moment he gets another offer from another team. And if it's a little bit more money-wise, he's coming back to the New York Mets to get a final decision. And we'll know if the Mets are willing to do it or not. But I find it hard to believe that the New York Mets are not going to eventually have Pete Alonso on this team on their number or very close to their number. So the report that I'm talking about is from Fansided, and of course, Danny Young from Sports Illustrated, who reported this story and this report from Robert Murray, who writes for Fansided. He's an insider, MLB insider for the Fansided. Says this: however, Fansided's MLB insider Robert Murray revealed on January 16th article that, according to his sources, the Mets aren't actually done courting Pete Alonso. That's belief stemmed from a reported 3-year offer of $68 to $70 million range is valid. Murray wrote after addressing the perception the Alonso return to New York seems unlikely. Remember, Pete Alonso walked away. The Mets did not pull their offer. Remember that. Last he said, but the reality is that Alonso returning to the Mets is still on the table. The two sides have talked recently, and it's clear that each side is the best fit for each other. So that has been reported a couple hours ago that they remain engaged. The Mets are still courting him because they still know their only offer is the only offer on the table. And until that changes, the Mets are still in the driver's seat, even though the Mets have quote unquote moved on from Pete Alonso, but the offer has never been reported pulled from the table. And we all know Alonso and Boras are going to make a final call to the New York Mets when and if they get an offer. What if Pete Alonso never gets an offer close to what the Mets offered? Where do you think he's going to sign? He ain't playing in KBO. He ain't going to the NPB league. He's going to sign back with the New York Mets. So this whole craziness with Pete Alonso and saga with Pete Alonso could still end up being a perfect fit for the Mets and Alonso to come back and sign a contract, and they both be on their way wearing orange and blue, and the Mets can go on about their business elsewhere, improving their team with maybe another bat, maybe a couple more relievers. But as of right now, the Mets are still courting Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso and the Mets are still engaged in talks. And until there's another offer for Pete Alonso, the Mets have nothing to worry about except their offer. And we know the Mets are going to get the final call if Pete Alonso does, if and when, get an offer from another team. Once again, guys, I want to thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you think about this latest report that the Mets are still courting and engaged in talks with Pete Alonso. As of right now, a few hours ago, that was reported by Robert Murray. What are your thoughts, guys? Let me know in the comments what you think. And I want to thank you guys for watching. And as always, Met fans, let's go Mets.